Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Uzbekistan later today for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, along with leaders from 3 nations with which India shares a tricky relationship.
That's right, Gargi. While Russia has announced a bilateral meeting between Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Modi, well, that is indicating, as far as indications are, against any structured conversation as far as China and Pakistan are concerned. The Prime Minister is likely to land in Uzbekistan this afternoon, and that would be the first time that the leaders will come face to face since the outbreak of COVID. Chinese President Xi Jinping has already arrived in Samarkand.
Well, let's go across to Maha now, who joins us from Samarkand. So, Maha, finally the SCO summit will begin today. The Prime Minister leaves today evening at 6 p.m. And it's going to be very interesting, given that after COVID, the Prime Minister coming face to face with, so many world leaders and Xi Jinping. We still don't know what is, there's not going to be a bilateral, but perhaps there will be some kind of a sidebar with him. And also Russia has said there will be a meeting between Putin and Prime Minister Modi.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Gargi. The Russian side has already confirmed, and that's by President Putin's aide, who has put out details of the agenda that they have in their bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister. That is President Putin meeting with Prime Minister Modi on the sidelines of the SCO summit. They are saying that they will discuss the G20 presidency of India, as well as other bilateral issues, regional, international issues. But importantly, they will also discuss the UNSC presidency of India. And now India will chair the UNSC in December this year, which will be the fag end of India's membership, non-permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. And significantly, this is the same time that the G7's decision of a price capping on Russian oil will also kick in. So in that context, the timing and the details and the discussion on India's presidency of UNSC becomes very important, because these are issues that then come up at the United Nations Security Council or at the UN platform. Moreover, the other meetings that you and Divya are asking about with regards to Prime Minister Modi, whether or not he will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping and Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, suspense still remains. But from what we understand and what we're given to believe is that though there has been a conducive atmosphere in some sense that has been created by the disengagement that we have seen at Gogra Hot Springs PP15, but we have to remember that there are more friction points where disengagement has yet not happened and de-escalation at the LAC has not happened. So India would want to send out a message that business cannot go on as usual unless there is de-escalation and disengagement before that at Demchok and the other Depsang friction point. However, since this will be the first time that the two will be coming face to face, because Xi Jinping, remember, hasn't stepped out of Chinese territory since the start of the pandemic, we are expecting some sort of conversation. It may not be structured in nature, but a conversation nonetheless between the two. As far as with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan is concerned, certainly India would like to express its condolences for the loss of lives in the floods. However, going beyond that, at the moment, we do not see a window for that. Prime Minister Modi will be arriving this evening. The summit, in some sense, starts this evening with an informal dinner. However, the main summit is only tomorrow, and this will be followed tomorrow by a lunch of all the leaders, after which all the bilateral meetings of the Prime Minister will start. So the Prime Minister is arriving only today. We'll have to wait to see whether he will ultimately participate in the informal dinner, or that informal dinner today will be skipped. So Prime Minister will be leaving this afternoon. The distance to Uzbekistan is not much. It's just a 3 hours flight.
Right. And Maha, also if we take a step back and take a look at the entire SCO summit, the 15 countries, this particular grouping, and given the war in Ukraine, what's happening there, and also we've had a lot of back and forth between US and China. So the world will be watching this summit very, very closely, given you'll have Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin attending.
Absolutely, Gargi. In fact, yesterday I put that question to the SCO National Coordinator of Uzbekistan as to whether the West is going to be watching this summit very closely and what message will be sent out from Uzbekistan. So he said that Uzbekistan is in some sense the confluence or the meeting point of the West and East. So he believes that they can create a conducive atmosphere where they can send out a message that dialogue is the way ahead and not confrontation and conflict. So certainly Uzbekistan and other countries who have been more neutral in their stand, for instance India, they are very cognizant of the fact that the West is keenly watching the summit because there are so many anti-West voices over here. You have Russia, you have China, Iran is going to be the latest SCO member. It is in Samarkand that the decision will be made for their full membership to the SCO. So there are extremely vocal voices. After all, there are at least 2 to 3 countries here which are also under the sanction of the United States. For instance, Russia, most latest because of the Ukraine conflict and crisis. Apart from that, there are sanctions on Iran which are continuing. Then there are certain, tiffs that we continue to see with Belarus as well. The Belarus side will also be participating in the SCO summit. So yes, interesting because 15 leaders, not all are members of the SCO. There are only 8 members. The new member will be added, that is Iran, which will make it 9. The others have observer status and some are invitees like the Turkish President Erdogan. But the sense that you get from this grouping in the current circumstances is that there are very powerful anti-West voices. So what message ultimately will go out from the SCO summit will be very interesting to watch and will be watched by the West as well.
Maha, a very crucial meeting to take place between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin today. So those ties to be strengthened as far as that meeting that's expected between the two leaders.
Yes, absolutely. That meeting was announced quite in advance that President Xi Jinping is going to meet President Putin. That meeting is significant also under the current circumstances because China in some sense has been weighing in on the side of Russia in this entire invasion of Ukraine. That is going to be certainly again watched by the West. Also, there are certain more sanctions that we are expecting to kick in against Russia. China and India, interestingly, have been some of the biggest importers of Russian oil. So in that sense, this meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin also becomes important because trade is an important aspect. The West believes that the entire war in Ukraine is being fueled by the revenue that Russia is getting because of the oil that they are managing to send to these countries, to big Asian countries. That is going to be perhaps in some sense, figure in the meeting, not just with Xi Jinping, but also perhaps with Prime Minister Modi.